They thought they had me, my own daughter and the son-in-law I'd raised like my own flesh and blood, plotting to steal everything I'd built over 40 years. But I signed one day late, one fucking day, and that single day saved me from losing everything. Let me tell you how family loyalty became the most expensive lesson two ungrateful kids ever learned about underestimating the man who gave them everything. David walked into our lives when Sarah was 22, fresh out of Manchester with a business degree and dreams bigger than his bank account. I liked him from the first handshake, not because he was smooth though he was, not because he made Sarah light up like Christmas morning though he did. I liked him because when I looked at him, I saw myself at 25, hungry, driven. Willing to work 18-hour days and eat ramen for months to build something from nothing. Mr. Thompson, he said that first Sunday dinner, cutting his roast beef with surgical precision, I want you to know I'm serious about your daughter. I'm planning to ask her to marry me. Straight shooter. No bullshit. I respected that. Sarah was glowing, absolutely radiant in a way I hadn't seen since her mother died 3 years earlier. This kid was good for her. After Margaret passed, it had been just Sarah and me rattling around that big house, both of us trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled. David seemed like the answer. When he asked for my blessing 6 months later, I didn't hesitate. Welcome to the family, son. I meant every word. Called him son because that's how I felt about him, the boy I'd never had. The man who'd take care of my daughter when I was gone. The wedding was perfect. Small ceremony, close family, Sarah in her mother's dress that we'd kept wrapped in tissue paper for 25 years. I walked her down the aisle thinking about how proud Margaret would have been. David's best man speech made me cry actual tears. Mr. Thompson, he said, raising his glass with shaking hands, thank you for raising the woman of my dreams. And thank you for welcoming me into your family like I was your own son. Your own son. That's exactly how I felt. Which is why, when David came to me 6 months later with his construction business plan, I didn't think twice about helping. I need capital, he said, spreading architectural drawings across my kitchen table like battle plans. I've got 3 contracts lined up, but the banks won't touch me without collateral. He'd been working for Morrison Construction since graduation, learning the trade, building relationships with suppliers and subcontractors. Now he wanted to strike out on his own. The numbers made sense. Residential construction was booming in Manchester. David had connections with property developers who'd worked with Morrison. He knew what he was doing. How much do you need? $200,000 to start. Equipment, materials, operating capital for the first 6 months. I had it. 40 years of running Thompson Electrical had left me comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable enough to bet on family. I'll co-sign the business loan, I said. David's face lit up like I'd handed him winning lottery numbers. Mr. Thompson, I can't ask you to risk. You're not asking. I'm offering your family now. The business loan was just the beginning. Within a year, David was bidding on bigger projects. Commercial builds, housing developments, renovation contracts worth hundreds of thousands. But the banks wanted to see stability, credit history, assets. They want proof I'm not some fly-by-night operation, he explained during one of our weekly dinners. Property ownership, business registration, financial history going back years. So I put the company in my name. DT Construction, with me as the legal owner and David as managing director. Made perfect sense. I had the credit rating, the property, the 40-year business history the banks wanted to see. This is temporary, David assured me, shaking my hand like we were sealing a blood pact. Once we're established, once I've got the credit history built up, I'll buy you out and take full ownership. Take your time, I said. I trust you completely. Trust, that word would come back to haunt me like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. But for 2 years, everything was golden. David was making money hand over fist. They paid their bills on time, bought Sarah nice things, started talking about kids in the future. Then came the house situation. Sarah and David were living in this shithole apartment in Fallowfield. 1 bedroom, damp walls, neighbors who played drum and bass until 3 a.m. Not the kind of place I wanted my daughter raising grandchildren. We're saving for a deposit, Sarah explained when I suggested they find somewhere better. David says we need to be smart with money while the business is getting established. Smart with money, I understood that. But I also understood that life's too short to live in squalor while you're building your future. Let me help, I said. The house we found was perfect. 4 bedrooms in Didsbury, good schools nearby for when they had kids, big garden for family barbecues. The kind of place Sarah had dreamed about since she was little. Dad, we can't accept this, Sarah protested when I offered to co-sign the mortgage. You're not accepting anything. You're borrowing. Pay me back when the business takes off. David was more practical. We'll handle the mortgage payments, Mr. Thompson. Consider this an investment in your daughter's happiness. For 2 years, they paid religiously, never missed a payment. David's business was thriving, expanding, hiring employees. Sarah had gone back to university to get her teaching qualification. Everything was perfect. Then David came to me with an opportunity that would change everything. There's a development project, he said, his eyes bright with the kind of excitement I remembered from my early days in business. 50 houses, luxury builds, massive profit potential, but I need serious capital. The numbers were staggering. £750,000, more money than I'd ever borrowed in my life. But the contracts looked solid. Established property developer, proven track record, deposits already paid. If it worked, David would clear enough profit to pay me back everything he owed and set the family up for life. I need you to guarantee the loans, David said. The banks won't touch something this big without solid backing. I looked at the contracts, the financial projections, the timeline. It all made sense. All right, I said, let's do it. I signed the guarantees that afternoon. £750,000 of personal liability, but I trusted David, and trust was everything in family business. DT Construction exploded like a rocket. Within 18 months, we had 30 employees, a fleet of vehicles, contracts worth millions. David was making more money than I'd ever seen in my life, and he was generous with it. Expensive holidays for Sarah Tuscany, the Maldives, places I'd only seen in magazines. New BMW every year, designer clothes, jewelry that cost more than most people's cars. You deserve this, Mr. Thompson, David said, handing me a check for £20,000 at Christmas. Bonus for your faith in me. I was proud, genuinely proud. Proud of David's success, proud of Sarah's happiness, proud that I'd helped build something significant. But that's when the changes started, subtle at first. David started making decisions without consulting me. Big decisions, equipment purchases, new hires, contract negotiations, just streamlining operations, he'd say when I asked about it. No point bothering you with day-to-day stuff. Then he started talking about expansion. We should diversify, Mr. Thompson. Property development, maybe some rental properties, build a real estate portfolio. It made sense. Construction was cyclical, but people always needed places to live. I found some properties, David said during one of our monthly business meetings. Distressed sales, good potential for renovation and rental income, but they need to be purchased quickly. More guarantees, more loans, more of my name on legal documents I barely had time to read. This is getting complicated, I said. Maybe we should get some proper legal advice. Mr. Thompson, we're family, David laughed, but there was something sharp in his eyes. Why pay lawyers when we trust each other? Trust. There was that word again, but David was right. We were family, and family sticks together. The business kept growing. More employees, bigger contracts, more money flowing through accounts I had access to but never really monitored. That's when I started noticing things. Money flowing out of accounts I didn't recognize, payments to companies I'd never heard of, transfers that didn't match any invoices or contracts I could find. David, I said during our next meeting, I need to understand these transactions. His explanation was smooth, too smooth. Subcontractors, he said, sliding printouts across the table. We're outsourcing more work to keep up with demand. These are legitimate business expenses. The paperwork he showed me looked official. Professional letterheads, detailed invoices, everything properly documented, but something felt off. Call it 40 years of business experience, call it gut instinct, but something about those transactions didn't smell right. I started doing my own research, calling the companies listed on the invoices, checking business registrations with Companies House, following paper trails. Half the companies didn't exist, the other half had never heard of DT Construction. David was siphoning money out of the business, a lot of money. My hands were shaking when I made the discovery. £200,000, gone, transferred to shell companies that existed only on paper. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. We need to talk, I said, calling David into my home office on a Sunday afternoon. Sarah was out shopping with her sister, just the two of us, man to man. I've been reviewing the books, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. David's face went pale, but he kept his composure. Of course, Mr. Thompson, you're entitled to see everything. These payments, I said, spreading printouts across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. Explain them. David looked at the papers. I watched his jaw clench, his hands ball into fists. Mr. Thompson, I can explain everything. Please do. Some of those payments, they're not what they look like. What are they? David took a deep breath like a man about to confess his sins. Personal loans to me. I've been borrowing against future profits to cover some temporary cash flow issues. What kind of cash flow issues? Gambling debts. My blood went cold. The room started spinning. How much? It's under control now. I've stopped completely, but I owed some people who don't accept late payments. How much, David? 200,000, but I'm paying it back, Mr. Thompson. Every penny. 200 grand. Stolen from the business I'd guaranteed. Money that should have been going to employee salaries, supplier invoices, legitimate business expenses. David, this is embezzlement. Mr. Thompson, please, I can fix this. Give me time. Time, you've been stealing from our company for months. It's not stealing if I pay it back. It's stealing if you take it without permission. That's when David's mask finally slipped. The charming son-in-law disappeared, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. "Your company," he said, voice turning cold as winter. "You mean my company that you happen to have your name on?" The disrespect hit me like a slap. This kid I'd treated like a son, who'd eaten at my table, who'd called me dad, talking to me like I was some senile old fool. I guaranteed every loan, I'm liable for every debt. And I've been running it, building it, making it profitable. You've just been signing papers. The contempt in his voice was like acid. Papers, like 40 years of business experience, meant nothing. Like the risks I'd taken, the guarantees I'd signed, the trust I'd given, all of it was just paperwork. "David, I want this fixed. Now. It will be, but I need you to sign some transfer documents first." "What transfer documents?" "Legal stuff, restructuring the business ownership, making everything cleaner for the accountants." He slid a folder across the desk. Thick folder, dozens of pages of legal documents, complex language, multiple signature lines. "What is this?" "Just transferring some assets into a holding company. Better for tax purposes, more efficient structure." I started reading. The language was dense, full of legal jargon I didn't understand, but what I could understand made my stomach drop. "I need to review this with my lawyer." David's face tightened like a fist. "Mr. Thompson, this is time sensitive. The accountants need these filed by tomorrow or we'll miss the tax deadline. Then we'll miss it. That could cost us thousands in penalties. Then we'll pay the penalties." "Dad," Sarah's voice from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come home. "Hi, sweetheart. David and I were just discussing some business matters." Sarah walked over and put her hand on my shoulder. Her touch felt warm, trusting. "Dad, David told me about the restructuring. It's really important for our future. Our future, not my future, our future." "Sarah, I just need time to." "Dad, you always taught me that family comes first. David's trying to protect our family's interests. Protect our interests. By stealing money and pressuring me to sign documents I didn't understand." But looking at Sarah's face, seeing the hope and trust in her eyes, I couldn't bring myself to tell her what her husband had been doing. "Not yet. I'll review these tonight," I said. "We can discuss it tomorrow." David's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, Mr. Thompson, take all the time you need." But I could see the calculation behind that smile, the impatience, the barely controlled desperation. David needed me to sign those documents, badly, which meant I needed to find out why. I didn't sleep that night, sat in my study until 3 a.m., reading through every page of those documents with a magnifying glass and a legal dictionary. The language was deliberately complex, designed to confuse, but the intent was crystal clear once you cut through the bullshit. David wasn't restructuring the business, he was stealing it. Every asset, the company, the properties, the equipment, even the house Sarah and David lived in, would be transferred into a new entity called DT Holdings Limited, an entity controlled entirely by David. I would retain no ownership, no control, no rights to any of the assets I'd guaranteed. But here's the beautiful part: I would remain personally liable for all the debts. David was trying to steal everything while leaving me holding the bag for millions in loans. At 4 a.m., my hands shaking with rage, I called my lawyer. "Richard, I need to see you first thing this morning. Emergency." "Frank, what's going on?" "My son-in-law is trying to rob me blind." Richard's office at 9 a.m. felt like a war room. Documents spread across his conference table, calculator clicking, legal books open. "Frank, if you sign these documents, you'll lose everything," Richard said, his face grim. "The company, the properties, your house, everything would belong to David. But I'd still owe the debts, every penny. $750,000 in business loans, plus the mortgages, plus accumulated interest. With no assets to offset them, you'd be personally bankrupt within months." The room felt like it was tilting. "What about Sarah's house?" "That too, it's included in the transfer." "Jesus Christ. Frank, this is sophisticated fraud, but proving intent would be difficult. Right now it just looks like a legitimate business restructuring. What do I do?" "Don't sign anything. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And start gathering evidence." I went home that afternoon with a plan. I would pretend to cooperate while secretly building a case against David. "Dad," Sarah called as I walked through the door. "How did the lawyer meeting go?" "Fine, sweetheart, just routine business stuff." David appeared from the kitchen, that same false smile plastered on his face. "Mr. Thompson, did you get the documents reviewed?" "I did, very thorough work." "Great, so we can get them signed and filed today." "Actually, I have a few questions first." David's smile flickered like a candle in wind. "Of course, what kind of questions?" "Technical stuff. About the tax implications, the debt transfers, that sort of thing." I spent the next hour asking detailed questions about clauses I already understood, watching David squirm as he tried to explain away provisions that would rob me of everything I owned. Every lie he told, I memorized. Every contradiction I noted, building my case one question at a time. "This section here," I said, pointing to a paragraph about asset transfers. "It looks like this gives you ownership of the properties we purchased together." "That's just for administrative purposes," David said, sweat beading on his forehead. "Technically, yes, they'd be in my name, but you'd still have full access, full benefits." What about this part? About debt liability. That's just maintaining the current arrangement. Nothing changes there. Lies. Every word was a fucking lie. But I smiled and nodded like the trusting father-in-law he thought I was. I think I understand now, I said. When do you need these signed? Tomorrow morning would be perfect. We need to get them to the lawyers by noon. Tomorrow morning it is. David's relief was visible. His shoulders relaxed, his smile became genuine. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. That night I made copies of everything. Bank records, contracts, emails, text messages, the transfer documents David wanted me to sign. Everything went into a safety deposit box at the bank, with copies sent to my lawyer and accountant. If David wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I had all the ammunition I needed to destroy him. The next morning, David arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, briefcase in hand, ready to complete his theft. Morning, Mr. Thompson. Beautiful day, isn't it? Gorgeous, I agreed, pouring myself coffee with steady hands. We sat at my kitchen table, the same place where David had first shown me his business plans 3 years earlier. Full circle. So, David said, pulling out the documents with the reverence of a priest handling holy relics, shall we get these signed? Absolutely. But first, I want to review everything one more time. David's jaw tightened slightly. Mr. Thompson, we went through everything yesterday. I know, but this is a big decision. I want to make sure I understand completely. For 20 minutes, I asked the same questions I'd asked the day before. David's answers became increasingly terse, his leg bouncing under the table like a jackhammer. Mr. Thompson, we really need to get these to the lawyers today. Of course, just let me read through this one more section. I could see David's patience fraying like old rope. His hands were clenched, his face was getting red. Actually, I said, setting down the papers like I was laying down a winning hand, I'm not comfortable signing these today. David's face went red as a stop sign. What do you mean? I mean I need more time to think about it. Mr. Thompson, we discussed this. The deadline is today. Then we'll miss the deadline. That's not acceptable. It's not your decision. David stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Mr. Thompson, I've been patient with your questions and your delays, but this is getting ridiculous. Is it? Yes, these are simple administrative documents. You're acting like I'm trying to steal from you. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Aren't you? The question hung in the air like smoke from a gun. David's mask finally came off completely. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the gambling debts. I know about the stolen money. I know about the fake invoices and the shell companies. David's face went through several emotions: surprise, anger, calculation, desperation. I don't know what you're talking about. I have bank records, David, payment receipts, evidence of every transaction. You're confused. Those were legitimate business expenses to companies that don't exist. David sat back down slowly, like a man who just realized he was standing on quicksand. Mr. Thompson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You've been stealing from the company and now you want me to sign documents that give you everything while leaving me liable for millions in debt. That's not what these documents do. That's exactly what they do. You're being paranoid. I'm being careful. There's a difference. David tried a new tactic. Mr. Thompson, even if there were mistakes, which I'm not saying there were, we can fix them, but you need to sign these documents. Why? To restructure, reduce risk, increase tax efficiency. For you, for all of us. I don't believe you. His composure cracked. Fine, don't sign. But when it all collapses, don't say I didn't warn you. You threatening me. I'm telling you the truth. I kicked him out. An hour later, my lawyer called. Frank, I found a clause. If you don't sign today, David can't force dissolution. But if you do, he gets everything. Don't sign anything. The next morning, David returned with a lawyer to finalize the sale of our commercial property. I asked to see the buyer, Sterling Development Group. Sounded familiar. My lawyer made a call, then came back. David owns Sterling Development, so he was trying to sell our building to himself using a shell company and pocket the profit. I confronted him. He froze. You have 24 hours to return every penny, I told him, or I go to the police. Instead, David vanished. He drained his accounts, maxed out credit cards, sold everything, and disappeared. But his last attempt to access our business account triggered a fraud alert. The bank froze everything. An investigation followed. They uncovered over £400,000 embezzled. Sarah divorced David before the trial. With all the debt in his name, she walked away clean. As legal owner and senior partner, I liquidated the business, paid off legitimate debts, and walked away with most of my original investment. But more importantly, I walked away with my daughter. Sarah moved back in with me while rebuilding her life. She got a teaching job, started dating again, and slowly healed. One night over dinner, she said, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. You had no reason not to trust your husband, but I should have trusted you more. You were protecting your marriage, I understand. I should have protected you instead. You don't have to. I've always known how to protect myself. We stuck together when it mattered most. and that was the truth. People ask if I regret trusting David. I don't. Taking risks for family is part of life. But I learned trust but verify. Love shouldn't blind you, and if someone tries to rob you, fight back with everything you have. David thought he was smarter, younger, more educated, more in tune with the business world. But he underestimated experience. He forgot I knew how to read contracts, catch inconsistencies, and follow my instincts. In the end, he failed because I refused to sign something I didn't fully understand. Just one day's delay saved everything. A single clause on page 47 required same-day unanimous consent. He knew it. That's why he pushed so hard. But desperation makes people sloppy, and sloppy is how cons fall apart. Now David's in prison with nothing. Sarah is happy and in a healthy relationship. I'm still here, older, wiser, and surrounded by people who matter. Sometimes the good guys win. Sometimes patience beats arrogance. Sometimes waiting one more day is the smartest thing you'll ever do. The morning after David was sentenced, Sarah and I had breakfast in my kitchen, the same place he'd tried to betray me. "Dad," she asked, "how did you know that delay would change everything?" "I didn't," I said. "I just knew something felt off. 40 years of business experience. No, 40 years of trusting my gut. What if you were wrong? Then I'd have lost everything. But I'd rather lose money than sign blind, especially if it meant losing you to a lie." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart." And in the end, that's what matters. Real family. The kind that stands together. The kind worth protecting even from itself.